Welcome to this TeamTelligent introduction to improving mergers and acquisitions through using the KSA suite. Bob Eichinger and myself, Roger Pearman, are the co-founders of TeamTelligent, and as a company dedicated to assisting organizations in talent management, we wanted to cover what we believe to be an important topic that is going to emerge as we come through the COVID-19 crisis. Most of the economic literature being published right now as we're preparing this presentation are pointing to the tremendous amount of financial opportunities that are going to emerge through mergers and acquisitions as we move beyond the COVID-19 crisis. We've decided that it would be very important to take the knowledge we have, the evidence-based behavioral libraries that we've created for leaders and managers, to help individuals and organizations understand the critical nature of M&A, why it is hard, which we will cover in detail in our first webinar. We know why it is hard, and we will cover that in detail in our second webinar, and we'll know how to make it better, which we will cover in our third webinar. We want to make sure that as we get into the details of our material that you understand these three main points. Right, Bob?
Thank you, Roger. So the first of the 3 points is that M&A is hard, most attempts fail. In order to understand this research, you need to understand the specific meaning of failing. Failing does not mean bankruptcy, it doesn't mean they go out of business. What it does mean is that the combined entity in either a merger or an acquisition does not financially meet the expectations and estimates and the projections made at the point of the deal. So when the PR release comes out about why we're putting these two wonderful companies together and what they're going to achieve in the marketplace, at some point, reasonable point after that, it turns out that financially they didn't make their targets. Using that definition of failure, somewhere between 50 and 75% fail. But a lot depends on the type of M&A that's done and the company's history in M&A, and we'll cover that in much more detail in webinar 1. Our second point, and it's an important point, of course, is we know that it's hard and most of it fails. We now know why. The research and evidence based in the M&A work is extremely clear. There's two major reasons. We've labeled one, the hard stuff, and that means to make the right move at the right price at the right time in the right way. And because M&A is done in a competitive bidding kind of environment, many times too much money is paid for the acquisition or too much money is used in the merger. And that's what makes making the financial targets harder. And then the second point, and it's actually the larger point, is the soft stuff. In most M&As, there's operational, cultural, and talent integration that's required. The financial estimates are based on integration and synergy. For instance, putting two truck fleets together into one would be a simple example. That is, it would be cheaper to run one truck fleet than two. So part of putting the companies together is to integrate two truck fleets that have different kinds of trucks, different kinds of routing, different methods of doing things. So the research says that there's failures in the hard stuff, that is the actual details of the deal, but much more important is the soft stuff, which is integration. Our third point, and it wouldn't be worth doing this unless we had this point, that is, we know how to make this all better. And it has to do with staffing the activities of deal making and M&A with the right kinds of people who have the skill sets that are necessary to do the deal correctly. Roger will now take us through what we find about what those roles are.
In fact, as Bob and I both looked at the various organizations we've helped over the years have successful mergers and acquisition events, we went back and revisited some of the literature and the evidence that, in fact, the most successful M&A events have 10 roles that must be successfully completed for the event to be to produce the outcomes that the organizations are hoping for. We have highlighted 3 of them that we know are especially important and that we're going to go into detail in our future webinars to make sure that everyone understands the criticality of the staffing, the team function in the M&A process, as well as managing and executing the communication plan and executing the integration framework to enable the initial financial effort to be successful. In fact,
as a partial example of the work we did, we took one of our 3-level libraries. This one is the Casale tool for leaders, and coded the 10 roles that are necessary for M&A to be successful against 35 possible practices. The result is 13 top practices. So one of the blue items that Roger just showed you is staffing the M&A team. And the M&A team has to have these 13 practices or competencies or skills or abilities, whatever you'd like to call them, in order for the M&A event to be one of the successful ones. Returning to a previous point we made, we said that when you look at why M&A fails at such a high rate, we said that there's 2 major issues. One is the hard stuff, one is the soft stuff. And it's interesting that after we did the coding, we noticed something in the top 3 or the top 13 practices, and we put them in the red and the blue here. You notice that of these 13, 7 of them really are about the nature of the deal and deal making and negotiations and pricing and making financial estimates. It's planning, task management, critical thinking, problem analysis, systems thinking. So that's the hard stuff. And then the remaining blue, the 6 blue, are all in the soft stuff. They're all about integration and putting cultures together and melding operations that are quite different from one another. So it's interesting to us that after we looked at the research, the coding came out identical to the research.
So we would invite you to pay attention to our webcast and listen in as we cover most of the reasons why M&A's efforts fail, why it is that we need to approach those M&A activities in a very specific way, and what are the kinds of things we can do about it. So we have 3 webinars that will give you more details, and you can learn about those webinars and access them at our website, www.teamtelligent.com, as well as receive additional information about all of our products which help you future-proof your enterprise. Thank you for joining us.